Dangerously close.
My guest today is Tor Valenza. Tor, Solar Fred Valenza, is the author and narrator of the Probably True Solar Stories podcast and the founder of UnThink Solar PR and Communications. Since founding UnThink Solar in 2009, Tor has represented top solar installers and manufacturers in the solar industry. Before using his communication skills to promote solar, Tor wrote for TV. Shows such as Stargate, Dharma and Greg, The Dead Zone, those are all cool shows, and developed many unproduced film scripts for major Hollywood studios and directors. These days, Tor's biggest fans are his middle school teacher wife and two cats who critique episodes by sleeping on his laptop's delete key. What's up, Tor?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here, man. Man, but before we get too deep into the podcast and some of the wackier questions that I am going to ask you,
oh, please.
I'd like to just, before we get there, could you just describe Probably True Solar Stories to me real quick?
Yeah. So Probably True Solar Stories tells the secret solar stories and about secret people that you've never heard of. And the reason is because they're all made up. And the reason why I'm doing this is because there are over 3.5 million solar installations in the U.S. alone. That's not the world. That's just in the U.S. alone. There are over 255,000 solar workers. It's definitely increased recently because of new legislation. And when you look at film and TV today, you never see solar on there unless it's some kind of sci-fi show or something like that. So the shows that I wanted to do, at least in season 1, which just wrapped, it's just showing how solar can be a part of almost any genre. And so, I know you've listened to, a lot of the shows. And so there's a haunted solar house story. There's a superhero story, solar superhero story. There's a heist story that's ongoing. So, sort of like that true crime genre. So I really wanted to show that, it's invisible in Hollywood, but it doesn't have to be. And so these shows are funny. They're quirky. There's a Winnie the Pooh episode too.
Nice.
So I'm really going all over the place for season 1. Season 2 is going to be a little more specific, but I did want to show Hollywood that you can write about it in just like any episode. Any kind of genre.
For instance, they have no trouble putting SUVs in every TV show because they're a fact of life, sadly. But why? It's so is solar power. Sorry, and no offense to. I got some shit from some of my listeners for going. I did an episode about some clean energy, and I went pretty hard on SUV drivers, and I wouldn't say it was hate mail, but I got some messages from some people. So you know what, guys, drive what you want to drive, whatever.
Yeah, no, it's going to change. And speaking of that, actually, I don't know if you all saw the recent Super Bowl commercials, but the one with Will Ferrell and Netflix, essentially Netflix is doing what I wanted to do for solar for electric vehicles. From now on, in all the movies and TV shows that it makes, when it makes sense, they're just going to put EVs in there instead of regular SUVs. So, that's the way it should be. They are transforming.
That explains a huge question to me. I did not watch the Super Bowl, so I didn't see the commercials. Co-producer Colleen did watch it, and I told her what you do and all that stuff, and she was like, "Oh, ask him about the Super Bowl ad." And I was like, "What? Which one?" And she's like, "The clean energy one." And I was like, So no. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because that clarifies it for me.
Yeah. It's very cool. That's the way it should be. But today with solar, it's really, not even as a background at a sitcom or anything else do you see a solar powered home. So they should at least take that step. But, what I'm trying to do is show them they can also be involved in plots and characters and people who go solar as well as the installers.
An interesting thing that when I first started speaking with you a couple weeks ago, we were talking about, solar power being basically just invisible in television and movies, just they just don't show it in places where it's like definitely would be being used too. And I was like, that can't, that can't be entirely. And I started trying to rack my brain of when do I ever see solar power? The only thing, like at first, the only thing that popped up was The Walking Dead. Right. They get to Alexandria. For people that haven't seen the show, there's this little community they briefly build there where they're safe from the zombies, and it's solar powered because it's there's no electrical grid anymore. But then of course the zombies come busting in and bust up all their solar power. Yeah. But that was the only example I could think of at the top of my head.
And that's ironic in the sense that solar by the oil and fossil fuel lobbyists, always is trying to portray it as being unreliable. Well, when you have a disaster, what are they showing? I mean, it's solar power. And by the way, the satellites and the space station in that's floating above us right now, that's all solar powered.
Yeah.
And even the Chinese, when they want to invade us with a balloon, that too was solar powered. The spy balloon was so. I mean, solar is a very reliable technology, and yet in the other movies that it's been in is like The Martian. When Matt Damon is stranded there. There's an old movie, an old James Bond movie, The Man with the Golden Gun, which is around solar power in the sense that he's chasing after this technology that this assassin has stolen, I guess, and is going to use.
Which Bond is that?
That's The Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh no, I mean which guy?
Oh, which Bond?
Is that
it's
like
Roger Moore? It's Roger
Moore. Oh, often considered the best by a lot of people. He's considered the best James Bond. He's not my favorite, but I mean, my favorite's Dom.
Is who?
Oh, my favorite. I honestly, I'm a Daniel Craig guy. I know that's a lot of people kind of find that like a little tacky, but I think he's done a great job too. I like Sean Connery a lot. I've gone back. I mean, I've been watching them since I was a kid and on reruns and things like that. And anyway, they do a great job. But in general, even when it is portrayed, it's not portrayed accurately, or not in the real here and now. And again, there's a lot that it can do, including there's battery storage, so it can work at night. That's the other thing that people say it can't. Well, that's not true anymore. Yeah. Well, it wasn't true a long time ago. They used to have lead acid batteries that they hooked up to. Now it's all going to lithium ion and many other ways to store energy. So, in general, Hollywood hasn't been very interested in it, and I get it, except in the sense that it's now transforming our lives just the way that EVs are transforming our lives. And, the same way that the other analogy that I like to put this to is in the 1900s, cars and silent films kind of grew up at the same time. And so when you see silent films, there are a lot of horses and buggies, but there's also all these car stories, again, that are being promoted by films, and people going to films are seeing this and they're going like, oh yeah, well, there's some breakdowns and challenging, but yeah, that looks cool. And that pretty lady is learning to drive a car. And the other fun thing about that era is that was before women had the right to vote in the 1920s. 1920 is when that happened. So the car scenarios were all about women independence. Cool. For that. So that was really cool. Yeah. But the same thing with cell phones in the 1990s. At
the same thing that's happening to solar right now, which is that it's coming down in price. It's getting affordable for everybody. Cell phones used to be for the rich, and it was this big bulky thing. And then they got slimmed down. The technology got less expensive. And then you started seeing like Jerry Maguire in, with that famous scene of him going, "Show me the money," and he's screaming into the cell phone. And the whole Matrix is all built around, in some ways, cell phone technology going around. So we need this pop culture moment in order for solar to also accelerate its adoption. It's going to happen anyway because we have to. But in terms of consumers wanting to do it faster, when I first started out in the business, it was in 2009, people were starting to get interested in solar, but they wouldn't get a quote. It was hard for them to care about getting them a quote. So, I think that's the key to good promotions and marketing, everything, is to make people care, to see why it's relevant to their lives. And I think contextually, when you put solar into a fictional story, that helps a lot of people because they just think it's cool, or they want to show that things solving their problems in the same way in terms of energy.
You just dawned another movie on me that has a solar power aspect. You never see the solar power, but when you said The Matrix, the reason that human beings are being used as batteries by the machines is because they were originally solar powered, and the humans used nuclear weapons to create enough of a nuclear fallout, nuclear winter, to blot out the sun so that the machines couldn't solar power. So, all right. So, I mean, but hey, what a great argument for solar. If they hadn't done that, they wouldn't have needed people. As you said before, man, like clean energy, and I know you just touched on this a couple times, but just like maybe to get a little more in depth.
Sure.
Clean energy is nearly invisible in film and television. And before I immediately jump to the most nefarious conclusions, which it's in my nature to do you possibly have some more reasonable explanations for that, besides me just sitting here saying that Exxon Mobil is behind, that there's an evil man behind a desk tapping his fingers saying keep the solar power out of the television?
Right. Well, sadly, you're right. No,
Damn
I'm
it.
kidding.
It seems like a Mr. Burns thing to do.
I do think that there is definitely a learning curve about it. So, cell phones, everybody can have a cell phone, but not everybody can go solar. And so I think, there are only so many Hollywood writers, and again, I was one of them, but people are, if they're not familiar with it, like you're familiar with a cell phone because you start using it all the time. If you're one of the again, we're still in the early adopter stage. We're getting into the early majority, but we're not mainstream yet, which is again why I'm doing this, at least on the residential side. On the utility side, it is the number one new source of energy for utilities. In other words, when utilities are thinking, should I create another gas plant, a coal plant, which is definitely they're not doing, but a gas plant or nuclear plant or solar or wind plant, solar is the first choice. It's the least expensive and everything else. So it's mainstream there. But now you got to think, okay, I'm a Hollywood writer. I'm a TV writer. What does that have to do with, real life? Why should I care again about that? So I do think that they do need to get more, the writers need to get more educated about that. And in 2014-ish, 2015-ish, I tried to make that happen. And I went to the Writers Guild and I said, hey, ex-Writers Guild member here. I'm now a solar PR person. And I just want to educate the writers about solar. Can I write an article? Can I do, how can I educate more writers about solar so that they can start thinking about this?
Yeah.
And sadly, the Guild just said, look, we just don't do that type of thing. So
don't do what kind? I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I'm like, I feel like don't do what type of thing? You guys don't represent energy sources? Yes, you do.
Yeah, they said I could buy an advertisement in the magazine.
Oh my God.
But what would I be doing? I guess I'd be advertising for a course to teach writers about solar energy, which would be good. But, that didn't seem that, I didn't want to spend the money. And
I mean, here's a perfectly simple. How many times has there been a shootout in a let's say like in an oil refinery or an electrical plant of some sort that's not solar or whatever, or the water, like the water company, they're underground, because it's easy to get places like that to film.
Yeah.
And there's like a shootout. Why don't you just make the shootout in a solar farm? Why not?
Right.
Like, there, and problem solved.
Yeah. Well, again, it is in a way in the sense that, the more people see it, the more they see it as part of their lives, and the more they want to, not everybody can go solar because they live in an apartment building, but there's things called community solar, which is where you can get your bill credited as if it were on your roof, but you're actually just taking up the energy that's part of an offsite solar farm that's in your neighborhood, and you get a discount off of that too. It's not the same in the sense that you get 100% off like you do if it's on your roof, but you'll save anywhere between 15 and 20% typically, depending on the community solar program. So yeah, I mean, I'm all for solar being in the background as long as it's in the background. And I think that more people have to, again, be adopting it in the sense of more writers and more producers who say, gee, it's so great for me. Let's see if we can develop a story around it. I think in general, because if it bleeds, it leads type of thing. If they're doing something about solar, it's usually, again, about a climate change story of some sort of a climate disaster and things like that. And I think climate stories basically depress people is my feeling. Like people
the day after tomorrow.
I mean, zombie and climate. People kind of know, I think, now that climate change is real, and of course, we're seeing all these terrible floods and all the other things, the heat waves and the droughts that are going on, and they just don't want to think about them. And I get that. So, my message by doing Probably True solar stories is, well, let's show solutions. Let's just show solar working and how it is already part of a lot of people's lives. Again, 3.5 million installations. And the other thing that it does is it shows people who are thinking about transitioning to the solar industry. It gives them a context and an education in a story-based way about solar. So, for example, again, I wanted to show a genre. Did you get a chance to listen to the solar superhero story?
I didn't actually. I was just about to ask you. I don't know if your favorite, but I was just going to ask you if you'd be willing to pick out one of your storylines from Possibly True solar stories and say that if you have a favorite, and share what it was about. It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't have to be your favorite if you don't quantify things that way. But
that's kind of an easy one in the sense that. And again, this one is educational, but it's more on the utility side of things. But it's called The Solar Heist, or How I Got Into the Solar Business. So this is a series. I'm doing 3 episodes per season, and it's about a large-scale solar developer, utility-scale developer, who gets his solar panels confiscated by customs. Now, a lot of solar panels manufacturing is ramping up here in the U.S. in a big way, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA. But right now the majority still come from Asia. It's China and Vietnam and a lot of other places. There is a real law that says you can't import solar panels that were made with forced labor, which is a good thing.
That's a good law.
That's a good law.
Yeah.
But this solar developer imports, again, what he thinks are ethically, manufactured ones, but they got switched by his importer.
Okay.
And so through no fault of his own, his panels get confiscated, and now he's going to lose millions of dollars because he can't build his farm.
Yeah.
And so he goes to a guy who knows a guy to try to liberate his panels from the customs warehouse. And so it becomes a heist kind of movie, well, whatever, podcast. And of course, like any good heist story, things go wrong.
Yeah.
But he gets, by the end of episode 2, he gets his solar panels, and he forms a kind of a friendship with the thief, who happens to be his neighbor. And that's very coincidental, but we'll see how that it may not turn out to be, because an episode.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm glad you picked that one, because it's cool on so many levels. And and I love that it's a heist. I'm super into heist stuff. I think one of my top 10 movies has got to be the movie Heat.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, how cool would it be to remake Heat now, but with solar panels, and you wouldn't have to change the name, because solar. Actually, you know what, this I wanted to ask you this, just just kind of a fun question, because we discussed earlier some of these lobbyists and some of these politicians who are
well, I'm going to make the solar lobbyist movie, by the way, one of these days. But I mean, not movies, gosh, I keep saying movie. I want it to be in the movie podcast episode. They'll definitely be one of those stories too.
Well, I tell you, these people, they deserve all the ridicule that they can get, because they're bad people. But anyway, I just didn't want to I didn't want to jump right into this, but we got to talk about these guys. Before we do, though, I just want to, let's go on a bright note right now, and then we're going to listen to this senator from Wyoming who's made a lot of waves. But before that, I just wanted to ask you, just for your personal opinion, what do you think is the best depiction of solar power in a movie or television that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, again, most of them are sci-fi. So there's a movie called Cool Runnings that was in the 90s, and that was cool.
Do you mean the Jamaican bobsled team?
No. Yeah, you're right. I'm mixing them up.
I was like, I don't remember there being any solar power in Cool Runnings.
It's about a solar car race.
Cool.
East University. So I think that was a good depiction of it, and I can barely remember it now. I probably should have watched it again.
Was that a documentary or a? No.
It was a fictional thing based on a true story.
Okay, because I remember the true story vaguely. Yeah,
every year in Australia they have a solar powered car race, and this was about a university that goes over there, and it's sort of like Cool Runnings in a way, but so yeah, it's the same plot thing.
It wouldn't be hard to find, guys. If you want to watch the movie, just Google all the keywords he just said: solar power race, Australia movie. Or we could just Google it. I mean, we're acting like we don't have phones right now.
The other thing that I like is again, The Martian. I think just because solar power does save the guy's life in a way.
Yeah.
So, and it's integral to the plot. So
yeah,
I
really and I like that. There's a lot of cleverness in that movie. That was cool. How he's able to continue to grow crops or enough to survive however long. What was he there, 6 months? That was a good movie.
Yeah, it was well. The book was great too. I mean, I definitely recommend the book as well.
Bravo, The Martian.
Bravo, The Martian. Forget it.
Man, I'm too tired to finish this interview. I'm just kidding. I'm not tired at all. In fact, I have a ton of energy. Not only that, I'm full of natural energy. Yep, the days of Mountain Dew and ramen noodles for breakfast are over. I'm putting those days behind me. Maybe not. I don't know. It depends. That's not the point. The point is, I've been starting my days with a shot of Magic Mind. What's Magic Mind? I assume you just asked. If you're like me, you probably sometimes start your day with a little too much caffeine, or eat a garbage breakfast, or just don't generally feel a ton of motivation every morning. So I started drinking these green shots in the mornings, and they help me get in the right state of mind for a productive day. I usually drink them before my morning workout or a bike ride and get a good little boost. You know, I've already found a million great ways to give myself anxiety without adding a pot of coffee to it, so the ingredients in Magic Mind are a great alternative for me. Magic Mind's got matcha, which contains way less caffeine than coffee and also contains additional compounds called catechins that extend the benefits of caffeine by slowing your body's ability to absorb it, as well as a compound called L-theanine that reduces stress. It's got Bacopa monnieri, I think I pronounced that right, a nootropic that improves your attention span, your ability to process and learn new information, and your memory. Ashwagandha, an adaptogen that reduces stress and anxiety. And Rhodiola rosea, a nootropic and an adaptogen that reduces fatigue, anxiety, and increases your body's resistance. It's got lion's mane and cordyceps, so I totally recommend you go to magicmind.co/myviewsaremyown and use promo code MyViews for up to 56% off your order. Also, if you're stuck in traffic while you're listening to this podcast, don't forget to roll down your window and yell, "Hey! Hey!" at the person beside you and tell them magicmind.co/myviewsaremyown, promo code MyViews. They'll know what you're talking about.
We're going to now hear a word from the opposition. I picked this person specifically because he gets quoted. Well, first of all, because he gets quoted. Oh, sorry. Did you find the movie?
I did.
Okay. What's it called?
It's called Race the Sun.
You know what? I never would have guessed it, but I have heard the name of that movie.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
And
Race the Sun. Check it out.
Race the Sun. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's get depressed. No, I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. We're going to criticize this guy and what he has to say. Anyway, like I said, I selected this guy because at first I said because he's been quoted in, and then I realized that's not the point. Is that he has been quoted and just ad nauseum. He wrote this op-ed for the Washington Times, which is someplace where really barely almost nobody would read it. But what the problem is people like Tucker Carlson,
Sure.
Alex Jones, maybe, I'm not even sure, but definitely Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, those types of that ilk pick it up, and then they treat it like news, and they report what this guy is literally, it's an op-ed, so it's just his opinion, if even that. I mean, this probably was scripted for him by a coal company.
Yeah.
So because he's in. Before we go into this is Senator Barrasso from Wyoming. And he if for people that don't know, this is actually some pretty good background information. Wyoming is the largest producing state of coal. He essentially works for the coal industry. He doesn't work for the people of Wyoming. He doesn't work for the people of the United States, in my opinion. But you know what? This is his opinion, what we're about to read, and I'm just I'm not putting
myself.
Well, what I thought would be fair is for you to take on maybe some of the science aspects of this, and
Sure.
I can take the heat of saying, the thing I say some outlandish, insulting shit on here about politicians, and you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but feel free if you would like to. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'll just read you the
read it. No.
This is the headline. Barrasso op-ed, President Biden's misguided energy transition, by U.S. Senator John Barrasso. Let's go ahead and let's just get the first two paragraphs out of the way, and we'll see where we stand. Barrasso wrote, President Biden's push for an incredible transition in energy has taken us from energy dominance to record inflation and sky-high energy prices. It's weakening our economy and hurting our families. America and the world can't allow an energy transition that chokes off U.S. energy production. By now, it ought to be obvious, even to Democrats, that we need more, not less, American energy. Any thoughts on his opening salvo?
Yeah. Number one, the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, has I just shared this headline somewhere, and I got to find it, but I wish you told me about this article before. I would have.
I'm so sorry.
Right in front of me, but essentially, it has created more jobs in the last year than any other sector in the economy. So in terms of hurting the economy, it's it's not, or in hurting jobs or anything like that. It's creating new jobs. And again, the projection is by 2030, we need 700,000 more workers in clean energy. So again, if there's anybody listening who's thinking about, getting it, using your skills, your current skills for clean energy, there's a lot, again, in my world, everything I see on LinkedIn is we're hiring, or I got a new job. They really need people up and down from sales. And it's just, you're going to have to get retrained, but definitely you will. And in terms of energy prices, again, there's this little thing called Ukraine. I don't know if there's a war there.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. And I hear it's affecting energy prices and among many other things. I think we're still in the last, COVID is still a thing, especially in China right now. So that's again, like it or not, people, we a long time ago wanted cheap goods. And so we decided to manufacture a lot of things in China. And Asia. So when those Asian companies start to shut down, that means our products and services shut down, and that means that raises prices. That's economics. So anyway, he was very general. I was trying to be as specific as possible.
Absolutely.
But
and also I apologize profusely for not sending you this guy's op-ed. Just didn't even dawn on me. I thought, hey, I figured he'll be pretty easy to tear apart because most of this is just blatant lies. I mean, the first two paragraphs, what did it contain? 4 lies in 4 sentences.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, he might as well have just said, I am given millions of dollars a year by the coal industry to continue digging coal out of the ground and to do whatever I can to hamstring any kind of clean energy. He might as well have just said that.
now let's give him, again, he represents, like you said, one of the largest coal making states. And again, not a lot of people there. I think there's under 1 million, but a lot of those jobs are tied to coal, and he's trying to preserve, his constituents, regular jobs. The thing is that, again, if you believe in a free economy, we didn't preserve the horse and buggy industry when we got cars. And again, your landline, I don't know if you have a landline at home, but, many people don't anymore. And we didn't preserve, those jobs either. They transitioned.
All right. Well, we're not going to, because this guy might go on for a long time. But let's give him a couple more paragraphs. Let's see where he's at.
Sure.
And let's see what you have to say. And obviously, like, you don't have to have all the facts and figures in front of you, because I'm guaranteeing you, he's pulling most of this out of his ass. The Energy Information Administration anticipates that U.S. energy demand will keep rising for decades. Worldwide energy use will grow nearly 50% by 2050. Instead of debating which energy sources to phase out, Washington should be focused on how to meet the growing demand with reliable, affordable, and clean American energy. Why is he saying clean? I think he doesn't know what clean means. One fact is clear. The United States is a model for clean energy production. If we want to address the need in an environmentally responsible way, America must lead. All right. It seems like he's gone off the rails right there. He's taken a left turn. Do you have any thoughts on where the hell that came from?
Well,
oh, I see. Natural gas. That's what he's coming at.
Yeah. And I think, and I don't know why conservatives love nuclear so much, and we can get into that, but in terms of natural gas, it is cleaner than coal. However, it is, again, still creates a lot of methane, so it is not clean. And methane is one of the most powerful greenhouse gases. In the short term, it does dissipate after a while. I mean, after a short while, but in the short run, it's very, very harmful to global warming. He is correct in the sense that our demand for electricity is going to rise dramatically because everything's going electric. And he is right that, it should be all powered by clean energy. He just doesn't have the right definition of what clean energy means. And to me, existing nuclear is fine. New nuclear has still not proven itself to be cost effective. We have not produced a new nuclear plant in the United States on budget and safely in 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
So, until they prove themselves, that's fine, but we still have a waste issue as well. So where do we, put the waste that has to be stored for 500 years? So, there's another kind of nuclear power that starts from the sun, and that goes directly. that is also fusion.
If only there was a power source that could reduce our dependence on petrostates that are causing terror and war, and if only there was a nuclear power source that we didn't have to take the nuclear waste and dump into the ocean. If you don't mind, man, I want to, if I could do a clunky analogy, just that I feel like illustrates what he just said. And that's this is saying, let's say that people, like a bunch of people start becoming vegetarians suddenly. Let's say there's a massive rise in vegetarians. And so there's suddenly a much greater demand for broccoli and carrots. And so we're going to need a lot more land to grow the broccoli and the carrots. Yes. But here's the thing, since we're not grazing the cows anymore, this insanely that takes so much more land, so much more energy. You have to grow so much more plant life to feed the cows. You're not doing cattle ranches now. You're doing broccoli and carrot farms. You see what I'm saying? It's a clunky analogy, but it's basically he's making a really weird turn there by saying that the energy, like the fact that we're going to need all this, is we're going to continue to need his coal as opposed to a solar farm. They're not a one-to-one comparison. They're not even in the same ballpark. So
for the record, I think that anybody who's in a current fossil fuel energy job, I think they should get definitely some type of transition money and training for whatever they want to do. It doesn't have to be clean energy. So I'm very much for that. That was part of the Green New Deal, which conservatives hate, and yet they were trying to support, again, through these people transitioning to some other career. Secondly, I'll drop another term for everybody called agrovoltaics. Mm-hmm. And there is some controversy, again, which I will be writing about in a story context.
Could you repeat that term?
Agrovoltaics or agrivoltaics. I think it's agrivoltaics.
Okay. I didn't quite catch it the first time.
Yeah. So there's the typical term photovoltaics, and then there's the term agriculture, and they've kind of meshed that together because there is some controversy about farmers who are reluctant to give up their land for putting solar panels on there. And for those people that want to continue farming and everything else and get a steady income from solar panel production, not solar panel production, but solar production, solar energy production, they can now co-locate broccoli, as one example, but soy and all these other things now with that are growing underneath the solar panels. And these studies are happening now that are showing it's a benefit. You don't get as much solar power out of it in the sense that you have to have room to still get your tractors in there to pull up the crops and things like that. Yeah. But you can have them co-located. So again, the world is transitioning and changing to these things that we never thought possible, of growing, clean energy and broccoli on the same plot of land.
That sounds utopian. I hate to say this because I everything you just said I love so much, but we're still going to continue to give Senator Barrasso his chance to say a couple more things, because he's getting to it. He's getting very close to his point, and also we kind of have to take into consideration that he's not just one nut in Washington that's saying this stuff. He's also this is getting picked up on the airwaves by Tucker Carlson, the most watched cable show in America. So millions and millions and millions of people are getting this op-ed regurgitated to them as though it was facts and news and science. So let's hear. I think we're really getting to kind of the meat of what he really wanted to say anyway. And also looks like we see a bunch of fibs too. American oil production also is much cleaner than in other countries. Okay. The amount of gas flaring per barrel produced in the United States is among the lowest in the world. It is 18 times lower than in Venezuela and 7 times lower than in Iran. Both are countries the Biden administration is in negotiations with to lift sanctions. It makes no sense to encourage less environmentally responsible oil production abroad while killing production at home. I personally have a lot of problems with that, but do you want to take a swing?
Yeah. Well, my first thing is that this is one of those typical, comments that I can bring back to childhood in the sense that, if your friend is going to jump off a bridge, or are you going to, follow him?
Yeah.
And climate change is affecting everybody. So, just because those bad actors are doing what they're doing doesn't mean that we should give ourselves a free pass. We should lead. And again, this goes into politics, but why are they trying to lift the sanctions against Venezuela? Well, they're not doing for Iran for sure, not until they drop their nuclear program. But because Republicans are pressuring Biden on the price of oil. And so again, which we, instead of just doubling down on, well, we shouldn't be having these oil wars anymore. We should just be creating clean power here with wind, solar, and battery storage. So that's my first reaction.
Yeah. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I mean, I just feel like you can just kind of catch him in a couple flat out lies in that one sentence. But you can also, I mean, some of it's just like it's not necessarily a lie, but it's a weird way to say the truth. Is to say that American oil production is cleaner than in other countries. What does that mean? Why is that relevant? It's still, we're talking about carbon emissions. We're not talking about like, okay, so we have less accidents at our refineries, less fires. What does that mean? That doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point here is solar energy. And that's the thing with these guys. They're always trying to obfuscate the point. Everything at an angle. And I think right here, we're going to go ahead and get to, this is why he wrote this op-ed.
Okay. Tell me.
America's coal is secure and plentiful, especially in Wyoming, where all of my donors are. He didn't say that, but read between the lines. We need to make sure America is the leader on carbon capture and storage. Carbon capture and storage technologies to make this vital resource as clean as we can, as fast as we can, and we must do it without raising costs for the consumer. So close to, it's weird when people like almost get the point. They're almost there, because I will agree. We do need to work on carbon capture. We do need to work on these technologies, but more importantly, we need to be reducing the carbon emissions. There's all this, what I believe to be magical thinking amongst fossil fuel industries and the conservatives that they have bought, and that we will sci-fi our way out of this. That we'll be able to siphon all the water out from underneath the glaciers, and they'll stop shifting, and we'll be able to carbon capture everything we burn. Yeah. We're not there technologically. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on my soapbox. Do you want to take a swing at that last little statement?
there is still no cost-effective, actually working carbon capture system at this point that is, that will capture all the carbon that a coal plant, burns and stores it in the ground. It doesn't exist. They do have technology right now that is helping a little bit, but it's still as dirty as anything, and it's just increasing the problem. And it's the technology that exists now is so expensive that, again, it doesn't make it cost effective. And so that's why utilities who are, again, not building any more coal plants are saying, well, what's the next cheapest form of energy? Because that's what we got to do for our shareholders and our customers. Well, it's solar and wind. He's doing a lot of wishful thinking there, because it just doesn't make sense, financial sense. And sadly, that's what, again, drives the decisions that many of our politicians make. It's all about cost. So again, that's good for, in our case, because the cost has come down so much. I mean, solar.
Yeah, I'm going to be transparent here. I'm going to skip over a couple paragraphs because I skimmed them already. This is basically the part where he says that Joe Biden made gas expensive. The reason that when you're hurting at the gas pump, because Joe Biden's making you hurt at the gas pump. And
right.
Look, we don't need to hash that out. We're not going to waste any of our time on this podcast talking about Joe Biden made the gas expensive. If that's what you believe, that's what you believe. We're not.
Bless you.
I can't believe you're even on this, listening this far in. But we're going to go ahead and just let him tie it up for us here. In a world so desperate for more energy, the last thing we need is an expensive and unachievable transition. Europe's tried that, and it has been a disaster. Instead of trying to replace one source of energy with another, we need to encourage additional domestic production from a range of sources that includes natural gas, coal, of course, nuclear, and then he, I guess, throws us a bone here at the end with hydropower, wind, and solar. It's good for America, and it's good for the world. Thank you, John Barrasso. All right, man. What do you think about the way he tied that together with a little bow?
Yeah, that's the old all of the above talking point that the Republicans have always done. And it sounds fair, but again, it does not address climate change, which again, he has not. That's the thing about, I think, Republicans. They're very short-term thinkers in many ways. They just want whatever they want now.
Yeah.
They're not, I don't know if you know about that study about eating the marshmallow. Like if you save the marshmallow, it's too complex to go. Look it up. It's about kids eating marshmallows and saving marshmallows.
Yeah.
And they grow up later in life, the ones that save the marshmallows to be much more productive.
I know that study. And yeah,
they're long-term thinkers.
Yeah. No, I'm familiar with that psychological study. Yeah, it's but we won't go into that. I totally for sure. All right. So,
but then, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say sorry for just kind of ambushing you with that op-ed from that senator, but I just kind of thought like, hey, let's let the opposition have their say. And I mean, that was goddamn a softball every minute, because half of what he said wasn't true, and if it wasn't true, it was just off the mark, or just basically a deflection. But
let me take a break here to just pump a former guest that you just had on, Nathaniel Stinnett.
I love Nathaniel
and what his organization, again, please listen to that podcast. The most important thing you can do to fight climate change right now is to vote for, again, advocates for clean energy and the environment. So please vote.
Yeah. Do you recall what I titled that episode? It's new. It's only a couple weeks old. It's like anyway. Yeah. Nathaniel Stinnett. It's a couple episodes ago.
It's called the Environmental Voter Project with Nathaniel Stinnett.
That's the name of his organization, the Environmental Voter Project. Very cool. His whole mission is to go out, find non-voters that are ecologically motivated and turn them into voters, people that vote along ecological lines. That's what they vote for. Just like the same way some people only vote for one topic. So doing good work out there. But yeah, man, going back to while we're talking about American politics and John Barrasso and all that, it's been said before. American politics is just Hollywood for the ugly and talentless. And like we just said, senators are often bought and paid for by the fossil fuel industry. Media is going to have to play an important role in clean energy education. Can you explain how infusing solar into film and television will help the adoption of solar power and workforce development, some of the things that you might otherwise rely on government to do?
Yeah. And I think that goes back to, I guess I got a little ahead of myself, that again, we've seen examples of that in history with car adoption, being accelerated by silent movies back in the day. And by cell phones, again, being shown in, the 90s more and more, and all these plots that are dealing with cell phones. And again, what happened? Things exploded. We have in all of our brains, and this is, I know from my marketing head, are what's called mirror neurons. From the moment that we are born, if you stick your tongue out at your infant, they will also stick their tongue out. We learn by copying, by seeing things.
Yeah.
And so when we see a movie and we feel scared or we feel excited or whatever's happening by watching a film and everything, we are kind of picturing ourselves in that character. And so when you have when you have plots and movies and everything that show people using solar power or having solar power jobs and things like that, we kind of imagine ourselves in those situations in the back of our heads. And so that's what we need to make it quote unquote normal. So I love GM for putting all their electric vehicles now into Netflix productions when it makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, that makes it more normal. And then you as a viewer, like I said in the beginning, people are advocates of solar, but what's going to make them go out and get a quote to see if it's right for them? And if it's not right for them, you don't do it. But, you can at least get a quote to see if it is. And one of those igniting things could be that you see a movie or hear a story or a podcast or read a book that involves solar power and go like, yeah, let me call an installer. Let me get 3 quotes. And by the way, see 3 quotes. The other thing about my podcast is that in the show notes, I always give you true solar takeaways. So it takes the bits out of every fictional story. And these are fantastical stories. I mean, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And it gives you, what's true about it. What are the contextual things? So, like, for example, the solar superhero story is about a solar superhero who comes from the sun, and all he's doing is trying to fight climate change by installing solar every 60 seconds. One of the truisms out of that is that a solar farm, or not a solar farm, a solar installation does get installed every 60 seconds in the U.S. I mean, throughout the U.S., every day. It's going that fast. And in this episode, it really isn't about it. It's about how he's trying to fight climate change, but there's a lot of permitting issues. And so this is an education about getting through all the red tape of installing solar today. And there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And he's trying to join the Super League because it absolves him from all the permitting things and he can just get shit done a lot faster. But it's, you see all his superpowers and there's a lot of funny moments in there because he's basically auditioning for becoming a superhero, but he just wants to be absolved from all the permitting problems.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's also going back just a few minutes to what you were saying too, like, the power of something, you seeing something in television or movies.
Yeah.
Movies, I think specifically, especially because they're an older art form and they're bigger, and they have big effects on you. I want to add a little thing. I don't know I hope this buttresses your standpoint. It might not, but you're making me think of when I was in Cub Scouts. I saw the Ninja Turtles movie, the original Ninja Turtles movie, for the first time. It was like a big Cub Scout thing. They got the whole Cub Scout troop together and watched it. And there's a scene where Donatello is skateboarding in the sewer. And in my mind, man, I was like, that is what I want. Like, I want that. Right. And immediately went to my mom, begged her. I was like, I have to have a skateboard. Like, I wanted that. I didn't ask her for a katana. I didn't ask for nunchucks. I didn't ask for size. I didn't ask for a bow staff. I wanted the fucking skateboard. And the thing is, it just so happened for me that really stuck. It was a good sport for me. And decades and decades later, man, I'm going skateboarding tomorrow. I'm a grown ass man. Like, I've torn both my MCLs. But what if I had never seen that movie? What if I'd never seen Donatello skateboarding?
Yeah,
my life could have been greatly diminished by the lack of
Yeah. And again, I don't think we're, my ask is to brainwash people. It's just to bring more awareness. Like I said, we've got over 3.5 million and there are solar installations and there's a new one every 60 seconds. So I just want Hollywood to acknowledge it, that it's actually out there. And they are in, more dense in some places, like here in California, we're the biggest solar state around. And yeah, you can pretty much, like, even watching from, I live in a condo, and the next building over is another condo, and there's solar panels right on top of the building. So again, it is a lot more here everywhere. And as a result of that, I interact with my condo board a lot here. I'm not suggesting solar. People are, the other homeowners are suggesting, why don't we have solar on our roof? Again, it's just like for you, it can be an inspiration with your skateboard thing, but more than that, it's just to keep it top of mind that this is an option, and it's a necessary one, especially right now when we're in a, from my view, from everything that I've read, a climate crisis.
And the thing is, it's not sci-fi. They may be like something to drill through by just putting solar in every Netflix show and everything. Just be like, just throw a solar panel on top of like the main character's house. You don't even have to acknowledge it or say anything about it. Just make it normal, because it's not technology for the future. It's technology for right now.
Yeah.
Actually, if you don't mind, there is one thing I wanted to ask you. We kind of glossed over it, so it's kind of jumping back a little bit. This is, I think, kind of ties into everything we're saying right now, which is when you were talking about they love making climate disaster movies. And, I could list off plenty, but, climate disaster movies, they're huge. They're probably only going to get more popular, as art imitates life. But I was just wondering, I keep throwing you and put just on the spot over and over and over again here, but I would love it if can you pitch me a concept for a climate solution movie? I mean, just an elevator pitch. I'm not asking for the script and the.
Again, I mean, for me, it's the man, what Republicans hate. And I it's not just Republicans. People don't like to be told what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
However, if there were a universal mandate like they have in California here, that every new building has to have solar panels on there, and the politics of that and what it gets to pass a bill like that, that might be interesting in terms of that. But in terms of sorry, what was the question again? I'm losing the plot.
I have an idea. I know this is your question, but do you mind if I shoot one out?
Oh, please, because yeah.
Do you remember the movie Moneyball with Brad Pitt, about how he like turned that baseball team around?
Yeah.
What if it was something like this, where like there's like a really smart, savvy guy, and you get someone like Brad Pitt who's real like charismatic, and they're like, "Hey man, we got a bunch of problems here with we can't get this solar power shit to pop off in our city." And he's like, "I know." And then they just do a whole movie about this like incredibly charismatic and clever person. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's just an idea. I was just like, what if Moneyball? What if you just changed it and it wasn't baseball, it was solar? Because you don't watch that movie to watch the pretend baseball games. You watch it because it was interesting to see what the manager did, I thought.
Yeah, I think again for season 2, I tested things with like all this genre stuff. But when I watch movies and TV these days, it is violent. It is dark. I mean, we're seeing spy movies and everything else, and so. For season 2, I'm giving the public what they want. Like all the episodes are going to be mostly going to be kind of exciting and action oriented in some kind of way. So a lot of things that's been in the back in the news these days are about these, I guess, energy terrorists that are trying to shut down, taking pot shots at transformers and trying to shut down the grid. So there's going to be a solar one about that. There's also I'm always beating up on basically Game of Thrones and dragon stories, because I feel like, why should people care about dragon stories more than solar stories?
They do.
But okay, so I'm giving the public what they want in season 2, and there will be a solar related dragon story, and I'll let you.
Oh yeah, but definitely like
subscribe to that. You know.
Did you ever see Reign of Fire?
No.
Okay, so this is a dragon story, but it takes place in modern times. So and also it kind of like it throws a little shade on the mining industry. They're mining, they mine too fucking deep. They wake up a dragon, and the dragons have been peacefully sleeping deep underground this whole time. They come out, they just destroy the entire world. Obviously, the only people left to save us are Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey. But
thank goodness.
In an era of solar power, I don't see why they didn't have solar. Actually, they might have. I haven't seen it in a long time. But you know,
I didn't.
You know, like they're living in a castle. I assume they're using generators of some sort. They have electricity, but they should have just been like, no, we've got solar. That's why we have electricity. That easy, so easy. Write that in the script. Why does your castle have electricity? We have solar panels. Duh. The end.
Yeah. No, and you know, it's hard to make it. I go through a lot of ideas before I hit on one that I can create a story about it. So again, I do understand it is difficult. At the same time, you know, just the simple things like you've been saying about putting it in the background, just the way that GM is going to be doing with electric cars and Netflix right now. You know, that's all I'm really asking for. And if you do have solar plots, even better on top of that.
Or I've got to tell you something. We are getting dangerously close to the lightning round. And throughout this podcast, you didn't
tell me about the lightning round.
I have you're going to love this next thing I have to say too. I have unintentionally really put you on the spot and not let you know about things I was going to bring up, brought in like freaking articles from asshole senators and
thank you. Thank you.
But the lightning round is where I intentionally put you on the spot. So that's what this is the part of the podcast where I start asking you questions. I started asking you questions super fast. Don't take time to think. Gut reaction. The first thing that pops into your mind is the answer. Today's lightning round was written by co-producer Colleen. I haven't even read it yet, but I do know what it is. So this is going to be a high pressure creativity exercise, because what your lightning round is to take these pre-existing movies and shows and add solar in some capacity, either to the plot or just a way to find a way to get it in there in a way
with my Winnie the Pooh story.
Yeah. Just get it in there in a way to where it's visible. All right, man. If you're ready to do it, let's hit the lightning round.
I love this. This is good. I'm good.
All right. Let's start it off. First one, Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street. What's his name?
Jordan Belfort.
Jordan. Thank you.
Or Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't know if you want to be actor.
Leonardo DiCaprio. He is a big time solar project utility developer, and he somehow makes a deal that is, I forget the plot of the movie. I just know that he's bad. What did he do?
He didn't pay his taxes, I think, was the main reason he went to prison. But he's just a dirty, rotten Wall Street guy. He started out with penny stocks, ripping people off, and then he just started ripping off richer and richer and richer people and hiding all the money in Europe and things he called rat holes. Right.
So same thing. He builds a lot of solar projects that never actually get built. And then they find them.
Totally a Jordan Belfort move.
Okay. But he gets all the tax credits, which are very, very big in the solar industry.
Yeah,
he's doing tax credit is a huge thing.
And that's actually, that's a great way to promote it, because you're like, look at this scumbag getting all these tax credits. You could do that honestly. You don't have to do it like he did it.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a good one, because this franchise is moving further and further into the world of sci-fi, so you can really go far with this.
I hope I've watched it. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, it's not out yet. This is Fast and Furious 10, the new one.
Okay. Yeah. So all those car thief dudes are now going to be doing a electric car race, or electric car theft of some sort.
Yeah.
And they have to, again, get it charged somehow. And they got to break into a solar farm and hook up a DC to DC connection to charge up all their cars as they go.
I love it. Ask any racer, any real racer. You got to go to a solar farm. All right, this one's going to be tough. This looks actually kind of gnarly. Law and Order. Dum dum.
Gosh, again, I don't want to say that solar installers are all saints. Again, that's kind of my series. The Solar Heist series, in the sense that in the episode you get a corrupt customs guy that allows them to be stolen, and maybe that's the crime, and then the custom guys get caught, and so do our main characters. But that doesn't happen because, again, in episode 3 we find out that the solar developer that got his panels hijacked is actually an undercover FBI agent. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. It's funny. Because like you go in that direction, I got kind of confused. There's a couple Law and Orders, and I've seen like SVU a lot more. Like that's like the Special Victims Unit, and I feel like you're doing Law and Order Organized Crime. So at first I was confused. I was like, well, shouldn't somebody like just drop a solar panel on like someone and kill him? All right. Ooh, this is actually going to get a little bit harder. Even maybe I don't know. Jackass.
We'll try. Just sliding down a mountain on a solar panel, it's going skiing with a solar panel, something stupid like that.
Just something that can, some way to hurt themselves with a solar panel.
Yeah.
All right, next one. Magic Mike's Last Dance.
Oh gosh. He's a dancer, at night, but he's a solar installer by day, and then he starts dancing on roofs.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of Magic Mike, I'm waiting for someone to do whatever songwriter does it, but like the solar power dance, and it becomes like a thing, like the Macarena. Like I
everybody
don't know what
do the solar power.
Yeah.
Hey, solar power.
We got to get solar more into music, into dance, into art. Again, it's really is going to be all over very soon if it isn't already in your community. So we just got to start showing that in pop culture and books, by the way, too.
Next one. I feel like this one's kind of tough, just in the sense that this is already considered by a lot of people to just be a perfect film. So some people
I'll make it even better with solar.
I was going to say, some people might find it hard to improve upon this movie. The Departed.
The Departed. Wow. It is one of my favorite movies too. Yeah. And that again is kind of my plot that I am doing the series plot, The Solar Heist, because that's about crime. And this would be, instead of trading cocaine, it'd be trading, solar panels and, that type of thing. So
Jack Nicholson's making some kind of like crazy deal, trying to sell a bunch of black market solar panels instead of coke.
Again, made with slave labor, of course.
Yeah, of course. Honestly, and that makes him even more evil. Yeah. That works. Yeah. All right.
That was an easy one.
That was an easy one. Man, I want to watch The Departed again. Tor, I've only got one last question for you, and it's the most important question of the day. That is, where can people find you, check you out, follow you? Where can they find your podcast, and anything else you would like to share?
Thank you. So the best way, I'm on all the podcast streaming programs, so you can go check out season 1 there. So Apple is most convenient for a lot of people, but I'm on Google Play, Spotify, Amazon, all those great ones, Overcast. So that's where you could listen to it and see some summaries and things like that. In terms of blogs and signing up for newsletters, and hopefully I'll be doing some live Zoom readings eventually. Go up, sign up at probablytruesolar.com. and you'll see the newsletter form there. And if you want to reach out to me and have a conversation about this, I'm all over Twitter. So I've been on Twitter since, the early years, and I'm known there. I started out with @SolarFred, but I'd love to, please share your thoughts about when you listen to the episodes and what you thought. And if you've got other plot ideas or, how we can get solar into more pop culture and art, I'd love to hear it. There is a movement called solar punk, and that is fiction. But usually it's always about sci-fi solar fiction, which is great. But I want to kind of make all of my stories be more. I want them to be much more contemporary in today's, because again, they're working today. Thank you for having me, Doug, and thanks for all those great surprise questions. I hope I answered them coherently enough.
You think on your feet very well.
I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.